I intentionally let the world believe I was finished. No money, no influence, no backup plan. I went to my children's homes, asking for nothing more than a place to sleep. My wealthy daughter wouldn't even allow me to step inside. My well-known surgeon son slipped a single $100 bill into my hand and quietly shut the door. Only my youngest, a poorly paid schoolteacher, welcomed me in, gave me his own bed, and whispered to his wife about selling their wedding rings so I could eat. The next morning, my attorney arrived with documents proving $72 million. What happened after that exposed everything. Welcome back, and thank you for being here. If this is your first time watching, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss stories like this. I'd really love to know where you're watching from, so leave your city or country in the comments and let's connect. Just a quick note before we continue. Parts of this story have been carefully dramatized to strengthen the emotional impact. Any resemblance to real people or places is purely coincidental. The message, however, is completely real, and it's one worth hearing. The sound of the door closing echoed down the quiet street of Madison Park like a judge's gavel, sealing a verdict that felt final and unforgiving. I stood on the stone pathway I had paid to have installed 7 years earlier, staring at the heavy wooden door that had just closed in my face. Rain slid down my unwashed hair, the kind of cold Seattle rain November delivers without mercy, and my clothes, a torn thrift store jacket and jeans stained by 3 days of street living, clung to my skin. I could smell myself. Stale sweat, damp cardboard, desperation. Behind that door was warmth. Behind that door was my daughter, Emily. The house rose before me like something pulled straight from a design magazine. 3 stories of pale stone with floor-to-ceiling windows glowing in soft golden light. A white luxury sedan sat in the circular driveway, worth more than most people earn in 2 years. I had written the check for the down payment. $240,000. A wedding gift, because that's what fathers do. They provide. They make sure their children never experience hunger or want. But standing there, rain washing 3 days of grime into my eyes, I understood with painful clarity that Emily hadn't seen her father. She'd seen a problem, an embarrassment, a threat to the flawless life I had paid to build for her. I caught a glimpse of her through the glass before she opened the door. Soft-colored athletic clothes, hair pulled back into a perfectly neat ponytail that must have taken time and effort. Diamond studs caught the light. Last year's birthday gift, $7,500. They sparkled as she explained she couldn't let me inside. Mark had an important dinner, partners from the firm. It wouldn't look right. I wouldn't look right. She never asked my name, never looked closely enough to recognize the eyes she'd inherited from me. She simply assessed the situation with cold precision, measuring worth in money and appearances, and decided I wasn't worth the risk. The door closed while I was still talking. Not slammed in anger, but shut with a firm, deliberate click, the sound of boundaries being drawn, of a daughter choosing her polished world over the man who had sacrificed everything to give it to her. I stood there watching the warm glow behind those windows as shadows moved inside. Life went on. Safe, comfortable, protected life that I had built and once believed could buy what truly mattered. The rain fell harder, and I still couldn't move. Turning away meant accepting what I had just learned about my own child. I pulled my torn collar closer and began to walk. My feet screamed with every step, blisters forming from days of walking Seattle's steep streets. But pain keeps you focused. Pain reminds you you're still alive, still searching, still testing the truth. I had 2 more addresses folded in my pocket, 2 more children. Daniel, my brilliant surgeon son who valued reputation above all else, and Ryan, my youngest, the one I had once called a disappointment when he chose teaching. 1 door had closed. 2 addresses remained. 2 more chances to see who my children truly were when the man standing before them had nothing to offer but need. 2 more chances to learn whether I had raised human beings capable of love. The rain followed me as I limped down Madison Park's spotless sidewalk, leaving wet footprints that would dry and disappear as if I had never been there at all. Let me take you back 3 weeks, to the moment everything changed. It was a Thursday evening in mid-November. I sat alone in my corner office on the 35th floor of Smith Tower, watching Seattle's skyline fade into darkness. Spread across my desk were financial statements, not company records, but personal ones. A decade of transfers, gifts, and bailouts to my children. Emily, 6 figures last year alone. Daniel, medical school fully paid, townhouse down payment covered, endless investments backed. And Ryan, a line so small it barely registered, state college tuition and a modest wedding gift. Nothing since, because he had never asked. My phone rang 3 times that afternoon. At 2:15, Emily's voice came through bright and cheerful, the tone she always used when she wanted something. Dad, I need about 125 for the kitchen. Mark's partners are coming for dinner and honestly, it's embarrassing. At 4:30, Daniel called, clipped and professional even with family. Dad, quick question. There's an investment opportunity in medical tech. I need 90,000. Can you wire it by Friday? No, hello. No, how are you? Just the request. Then at 6:45, my phone rang again. Hey Dad, it's Ryan. Just checking in, seeing how you're doing. School's been hectic. I've got this student, Ethan. His mom works 3 jobs and he's still going hungry. But anyway, I just wanted to hear your voice. That was when it hit me like a blow to the chest. 2 children who called me a wallet, and 1 who called me Dad. I closed my eyes and saw Sarah, my wife, gone 12 years now, and I heard her final words in that hospital room as clearly as ever. Take care of our children, Michael. Give them everything. I had built a $72 million empire trying to honor that promise, but sitting there, I finally understood something painful. I had given them everything except what actually mattered. Another memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Ryan, at 18, standing in this very office, looking nervous but steady. I want to be a teacher, Dad. Elementary school. I want to make a difference, not make millions. I'd been furious. I hadn't built an empire so my son could earn $40,000 a year. He'd looked at me with Sarah's eyes and said quietly, then maybe you built it for the wrong reasons. We didn't speak for 3 months after that. I opened my eyes, picked up my phone, and dialed Thomas Reed, my attorney for 25 years and maybe the only real friend I had left. Thomas, I need your help with something unusual. How unusual? He asked. I want to disappear. There was silence, then a careful, measured pause. I explained everything, the 3 phone calls, the numbers spread across my desk, the test I felt I had to run before making final decisions about my will, before deciding whether the children I'd raised deserved the legacy I'd built. Thomas tried to talk me out of it. Too dangerous, too risky. I was too old. There were safer ways. But I had already decided. I would disappear. I would strip away every sign of wealth and status, become nothing more than a man with nothing to offer, but need. I would knock on their doors and see who opened them. I needed to know whether I had raised children who understood that love isn't measured in wire transfers, or whether I had created something else, something I was afraid to name. The city lights glittered below my office window, each one representing someone going home to family. I was about to find out, if I still had one. 3 days later, I barely recognized the man staring back at me in the thrift store mirror. 3 days of peeling away everything I had built over 63 years. The torn jeans and stained jacket had cost $15 at Goodwill. I'd stopped shaving, stopped showering, rubbed dirt into my hands until they looked like they belonged to someone who worked with them instead of signing papers. The transformation was complete. I looked exactly like what I needed to be. Nobody. Monday night was the first night I learned what invisible felt like. I walked through Pike Place Market as vendors packed up for the evening. People who once would have nodded respectfully to Michael Carter now stepped around me like I was something unpleasant on the sidewalk. A woman pulled her daughter closer. A businessman checked his wallet. No one met my eyes. That night, I found shelter under the viaduct, wedged between concrete pillars that smelled of rain and decades of desperation. Above me, cars rushed past, headlights casting moving shadows. Every one of them carried someone going home, going somewhere warm, somewhere they belonged. The cold settled deep into my bones. I didn't sleep. Tuesday night, I met Grace at the downtown bus station. She had her belongings in a shopping cart, late 60s, gray hair pulled into a thin ponytail, eyes that had seen too much. When she saw me sit on a nearby bench, she reached into her cart and handed me half a piece of bread. Stale and hard, she said softly. You look hungry. The generosity of that moment hit me harder than the cold. A woman with nothing sharing what little she had. We sat in silence, watching buses carry people to places that weren't concrete benches and shopping carts. "Been out here long?" she asked. "3 days," I said. "6 years for me," she replied quietly. "My children forgot about me. Called it tough love." There was no anger in her eyes, just tired sadness. "Money changes people," she said, "makes them forget what matters." Her words echoed long after she drifted into sleep on that bench. Another memory surfaced, sharp and painful. Ryan at 5 years old, holding my hand downtown, pointing at a man sleeping in a doorway. "Daddy, why is that man sleeping on the street?" I had barely looked. "Because he didn't work hard enough, son. That's what happens when you don't make something of yourself." Ryan had been quiet for the rest of that walk. Sitting on that bus station bench now, 3 days of grime on my skin and borrowed bread in my stomach, I understood the cruelty of that answer, the arrogance of it. That man might have been a veteran, might have lost everything to medical bills, might have had children who forgot him, might have been someone just like Grace, might have been who I was becoming if my test confirmed what I was beginning to fear about my own children. By Wednesday evening, I was ready. My body ached. Hunger gnawed constantly. But I had learned what I needed to learn. I had felt what I needed to feel. I had 3 addresses memorized. 3 children living in homes I had paid for. 3 chances to discover who they really were when the man standing at their door had nothing but need. 3 chances to learn whether Grace's words were true for my own family, whether money had changed them enough to make them forget what mattered. Daniel's glass and steel townhouse stood like a monument to everything I had taught him to value. It was just after 9 when I reached Capitol Hill. The walk from Madison Park had taken nearly 2 hours, every step grinding blisters deeper, but I made it to the second address. The building rose 3 stories high, all floor-to-ceiling windows and exposed steel beams, sharp angles and modern lines. Success. Distance from need. I climbed the concrete steps and pressed the bell. The door opened quickly. Daniel stood there in surgical scrubs, phone in hand, likely expecting a delivery. His eyes swept over me with the quick, assessing gaze of someone trained to diagnose problems. For a brief moment, something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe. Recognition trying to surface. Then his expression settled into professional neutrality. "Can I help you?" "It's me," I said. "It's Dad." I watched him process it, watched his eyes move from my face to my torn clothes, watched him take a small step back, not closing the door but not opening it wider either. "Dad," he said carefully, testing the word. "What happened?" "I lost everything," I replied. "The company went under. I've been on the streets for 3 days. I just need a place to stay." He didn't move. He didn't invite me in. He just stood there, blocking the doorway. "This is very sudden," he said. "Why didn't you call?" "I tried." "You said you were busy." Something tightened around his mouth. "I'm always busy. I'm a cardiovascular surgeon." He exhaled slowly. "But this affects my practice. My patients are important people, politicians, business executives. If they knew my father was—" He stopped, but he didn't need to finish. "Living on the streets." "It's not about judgment," he said quickly. "It's about optics. You understand how reputation works." He reached into his wallet, Italian leather, butter soft, close to $1,000. I had given it to him 2 years earlier. He pulled out 2 $50 bills and held them toward me. "Here, find a cheap hotel. Get cleaned up. When you're presentable, we can talk. I have surgery at 6 tomorrow morning." I didn't take the money right away. I just looked at my son, the man who had spent 12 years learning how to heal hearts. "I saw you yesterday," I said quietly, "outside your hospital, around 5:30. He went very still. "I see a lot of people outside the hospital." "I was sitting on the bench by the main entrance," I said. "You walked right past me." "I don't remember," he replied. "I see dozens of people every day." But his hand tightened on the doorframe. He knew, and he had chosen to keep walking. "Please take the money," he said. "I want to help, just not like this." I took the $100. I watched him close the door before I turned away. I heard the deadbolt slide home. The healer had just diagnosed his own father as a liability, something to be managed, hidden, made acceptable before being acknowledged. I stood on his concrete porch, the two $50 bills in my hand, feeling like 30 pieces of silver. Whatever sickness had infected Emily had infected Daniel too. The same cold equation measuring worth in appearances and bank balances. My feet ached, my body hurt, but nothing hurt more than the certainty settling in my chest. I had one child left. Ryan, the teacher, the one who had chosen purpose over profit, the one earning $42,000 a year helping children learn to read. One more door. One more chance to discover whether I had managed to raise even one child who remembered that people mattered more than reputations. The small house on South Cloverdale Street looked nothing like my other children's homes. It was nearly 11 when I found the address in Rainier Valley, a working-class neighborhood where houses sat close together and streetlights cast shadows across cracked sidewalks. The walk from Capitol Hill had taken another hour, my body moving on autopilot while every muscle screamed for rest. Ryan's house was a single-story cottage with cream-colored paint peeling in places. A small garden stretched across the front, clearly tended by hand. No electronic gate, no circular driveway, just a wooden fence in need of repair and a porch light that flickered as I climbed the 3 steps. This was my last chance. My last child. I pressed the doorbell and heard it chime inside. Footsteps approached. The door opened. A woman stood there, Ryan's wife, Scarlett. I had met her only a few times at family gatherings where Emily and Daniel had made her feel small. She wore a simple olive green sweater and jeans, brown hair pulled into a ponytail. No makeup. No jewelry, except a thin silver wedding band. Her brown eyes met mine and held for a heartbeat longer than I expected. Then she smiled. "Oh my God," she said immediately, reaching for my arm. "What happened to you? Come in. Come inside." She pulled me into warmth. The house smelled like something cooking, like life being lived. A small living room with a worn brown sofa and bookshelves made from cinder blocks and planks. "Ryan," Scarlett called. "Ryan, come quick." Ryan appeared from the kitchen in a gray shirt and old jeans. When he saw me, his face moved through a dozen emotions in a single heartbeat. "Dad." He crossed the room in 3 strides. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" His hands were on my shoulders, checking me, steadying me. What happened? There was no calculation in his voice, no concern for image or schedule, just immediate worry for me. The difference from Emily and Daniel cracked something open in my chest. "I lost everything," I said. "The company, the house. I've been on the streets." Ryan didn't step back. He didn't ask how or why. He pulled me into a hug. "You're here now," he said. "You're safe. That's what matters." Scarlett was already moving. "The shower," she said. "I'll get towels. Ryan, find something clean." "I don't want to impose," I said weakly. "You're not imposing," Ryan said. "You're family." 20 minutes later, I stood under hot water in their tiny bathroom, watching 3 days of grime swirl down the drain. Clean towels waited. Folded clothes sat on the toilet lid. Scarlett's gray sweatpants and the oversized olive sweater she had been wearing, given without a moment's hesitation. When I came out, dinner waited on their small table. Vegetable soup in a chipped bowl, toast with butter, orange juice. Nothing fancy, everything prepared with care. They sat with me while I ate, talking about Ryan's students, about Scarlett's garden, about ordinary things, as if welcoming a man who had been sleeping under bridges was the most natural thing in the world. "You'll take the bedroom," Ryan said when I finished. "Scarlett and I will be fine on the sofa." "No," I protested. "I can't take your bed." His voice stayed gentle but firm. "You're taking the bed. We're not discussing it." Scarlett led me down the short hallway to their bedroom, barely large enough for a double bed and an old dresser. The sheets were worn soft from years of washing. A wedding photo sat on the nightstand, both of them smiling with pure happiness, borrowed suit and simple dress. "Sleep well," Scarlett said, touching my arm. "You're safe here." They closed the door quietly behind them. I lay in their bed, the sheets smelling faintly of lavender detergent, tears sliding down my face. They hadn't asked what happened. They hadn't asked why I hadn't called. They had simply taken care of me. 2 children with everything had given me nothing. 1 child with almost nothing had given me everything. I should have slept. My body was exhausted, but through the paper-thin walls, I heard their voices in the living room, Ryan and Scarlett talking softly, and what I heard next would break something in me that had been holding together for 63 years. Daniel and Emily were in the living room. The lamplight leaked under the door, spreading a faint glow across the hallway. I should have turned away. I should have respected their privacy. But I lay there unmoving, listening despite myself. "We don't have enough," Daniel said, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "My paycheck barely covers rent and food. I don't know how we're going to get through this month." Emily hesitated before answering. "I've been thinking about it." There was a pause. "We could sell the rings." "No," Daniel said instantly. "Emily, those rings mean everything to you." "They're just metal," she replied softly. "My grandmother gave them to me when she was dying. She said they survived the Great Depression and would protect me. But they're not magic, Daniel. They're symbols. They're all you have left of her. I have her love. I have her memory. And I have you." Her voice trembled. "Your father is sleeping in our bed because he has nowhere else to go. The pawn shop offered $280. That's groceries for the month and enough to help him get back on his feet." Silence followed. I pressed my fist to my mouth to keep from making a sound. "Are you sure?" Daniel asked quietly. "I'm sure," Emily said, tears clear in her voice. "She always said family comes first. She'd want me to do this." "I love you," Daniel whispered. "I love you too. We'll get through it. We always do." I heard chairs scrape, footsteps moving away, then darkness as the light disappeared. I lay there shaking, my face wet. For 63 years, I'd believed money was how you proved love, that success meant giving and providing. Yet the woman my family had mocked for her thrift store clothes and her husband's modest salary was ready to give up the most precious thing she owned for me, a stranger who had arrived at her door in rags. Laura had shut the door to protect her image. Michael had handed me $100 to make me disappear. But Emily was willing to sell rings that had survived the Great Depression to help me. I didn't deserve it. Something shifted inside me that night, something I couldn't yet name, but as I lay there listening to the clock tick, I knew I had been wrong about everything. I woke to the smell of weak coffee and toast, the best breakfast I'd had in years. Morning light filtered through thin curtains. Emily stood in the kitchen, humming as she poured coffee into mismatched mugs. The table held toast, scrambled eggs, and orange juice. "Daniel left for school at 6:30, she said. "He teaches first period and will be back around 9:30. I sat down, the weight of the night still heavy. "Emily, about the rings." "We're not selling them," she said gently. "I thought about it all night. We'll find another way." I looked at her, this woman my family had dismissed, who had been willing to give up everything for a stranger. "Why did you let me in?" She smiled. "Because you needed help. That's enough, isn't it?" We ate quietly. Then she told me about Noah, an 8-year-old in Daniel's class whose father had died the year before. His mother worked 3 jobs, and Daniel quietly spent $180 a month to make sure the boy ate lunch every day. "He never told me," I said. "He wouldn't," she replied. "That's who he is." She studied my face. "Mr. Harris, something doesn't add up. A man like you doesn't lose everything that fast." My throat tightened. "You don't have to explain," she said softly. "But even if this was a test, we would still have opened the door." The words hit hard. She knew, or at least suspected, and still she would have helped. I told her everything: the fake bankruptcy, the $72 million untouched in accounts, the test, the slammed door, the $100 dismissal, the days invisible on the street. When I finished, she took my hand. "You needed the truth," she said. "I understand." At 9:30, the door opened and Daniel came in, jacket still on, backpack over one shoulder. He looked at Emily, then at me, and I knew he understood enough. "Dad, are you okay?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "I don't know." He sat beside Emily. "What happens now?" "I was going to confront Laura and Michael," I said. "Disinherit them." "Don't," Emily said firmly. "Don't make permanent decisions from temporary pain." Daniel nodded. "They're still your children." I looked at them and realized they had more wisdom than I'd gained in a lifetime of building empires. I called Robert Jenkins. "Change of plans," I said. Bring the team and documents, but leave the will. We're not finalizing anything today. Meet here at 10:30 and call Laura and Michael. When I hung up, I met their eyes. At 10:30, the truth would arrive with them. Neighbors watched as two black SUVs pulled up. Robert arrived with security, briefcases turning the modest living room into a boardroom. Soon after, a silver Mercedes and a black BMW stopped outside. Laura stepped out in a cream coat, Michael beside her in hospital scrubs. When they saw me sitting there in borrowed clothes, Laura's hand flew to her mouth. "Sit down," I said. Robert opened his briefcase. "Mr. Harris is not bankrupt," he said calmly. "His net worth remains $72 million. Laura went pale. "This was a test," I said, "to see who you were when I had nothing." "That's not fair," she protested. "James, show them the first document." A phone record slid onto the table. Saturday, November 30th, a call from a bank that doesn't exist. "I arranged it," I said quietly. "An actor reading a script. That's entertainment." Victoria's voice cracked. "No," I said. "That's information. What you did with it revealed who you are. You didn't call me, Victoria. You didn't ask if I was okay. You called your lawyer to check my will." Silence. Victoria began to cry, deep, shaking sobs. I turned to Alexander. "Monday, December 2nd, 5:30 p.m., outside Swedish Medical Center," I said. His jaw tightened. "You walked out after your shift. I was sitting on the sidewalk. Our eyes met for 3, maybe 4 seconds. 'Dad,' he said, then crossed the street. You chose not to look closer. Did you really not recognize your father? Or did you choose not to because stopping would have been a distraction?" Alexander's composure cracked. "I see dozens of people outside that hospital." "You see them," I said, "but you don't know them. You measure worth by appearances, just like I taught you." Kevin stood from the corner. "Dad, they learned this from you. You always measured us by numbers, how much we earned, how successful we looked. You taught us that money equals love, that success means more than kindness. They didn't invent that lesson. They learned it from watching you." The words hit me harder than anything Victoria or Alexander could have said. He was right. Victoria still cried. Alexander sat frozen, staring at his hands. I looked at them, and I saw myself reflected back. The same cold ambition, the same obsession with appearances, the same belief that wealth could substitute for love. I had built them in my image, and now I was judging them for becoming exactly what I'd taught them to be. The silence was thick and heavy. I turned to Scarlett. Her brown eyes met mine with that quiet strength I had seen the night she opened her door. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked. "If you're still here with me, let me know. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think I should do next." Before we move into the final chapter, a quick note. While parts of this story have been carefully dramatized to deepen its emotional impact, the core message is real. What Scarlett is about to reveal isn't just another moment in my story. It's the truth that changed everything for me. Stay with me. The ending is almost here. Scarlett looked into my eyes, calm and steady. "Yes, I knew." Kevin turned to her, stunned. "You knew it was my dad?" "I knew the moment I opened the door. Your eyes never change, Mr. Harris. You can change your clothes, your hair, your voice, but not your eyes." She looked at Kevin. "But I wanted your father to see something. I wanted him to see that you would give up our bed, our food, even our wedding rings for a complete stranger. Not because it was your father, but because that's who you are. Your father wanted to know who loved him. I wanted him to know who his son really was." The words broke something inside me. "I failed," I said, my voice cracking. "I failed to see it all these years." Victoria's tears were now raw, honest. "I've spent my life trying to be perfect in your eyes, Dad, but it was never enough." Alexander's voice was quiet. "You measured us by money and success. We just learned what you taught us." "I know," I said. "I built you this way. This is my fault too." I took a breath. "Here's what's going to happen. Victoria, Alexander, you're not cut out of the will, but there are conditions. Weekly family therapy for 3 years, community service with the homeless, real apologies to Kevin and Scarlett, and time together, real time, not transactions. Fail, and you're out, but I'm giving you a chance." They signed the documents James prepared, shaken but willing. I turned to Kevin and Scarlett. I'm giving you a house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, in Rainier Valley, $420,000 paid in full. It's yours. Kevin started to protest. I raised my hand. This isn't a gift. It's recognition. You showed me what family really means. 1 week later, I spent 3 days searching for Helen, the woman who had shared her stale bread with me. I found her at a downtown shelter and arranged an apartment, a cleaning job in one of my buildings, and a $2,000 monthly stipend. She cried when I told her, "Why me? Because you shared your bread when you had nothing left to give." 3 months later, March 20th to 25th, I stood outside a food bank in Capitol Hill. Victoria was inside volunteering for the first time. Through the window, I watched her kneel beside a homeless woman, listening with genuine attention. Small signs, but they mattered. Change takes time, forgiveness takes longer. But for the first time in 63 years, I understood what real wealth looked like. That evening, I sat with Kevin and Scarlett on their old sofa in the house I had given them. The walls needed paint. The floors creaked, but the warmth was real, the kind you cannot buy. Money buys a lot, I said quietly. Houses, cars, expensive educations. But it doesn't buy the doors that open when you need them most. It doesn't buy hands that catch you when you fall. It doesn't buy love that welcomes you without questions. Kevin smiled. Scarlett took my hand. Those things come from the heart, I continued. At 63, I've learned a heart willing to give everything is worth more than $72 million. Outside, the Seattle rain fell softly, but inside, surrounded by the people who'd shown me what family truly meant, I finally felt warm. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in decades, I wasn't walking it alone. I'm Eddie Harris, and I'm telling you this so you don't become the man I was. Don't measure love by money. Don't confuse providing with presents. I spent decades building an empire and nearly lost my family because I believed success could replace compassion. It took God bringing me to my knees before I saw the truth. God didn't speak through wealth, power, or name. God spoke through a small house, a kind daughter-in-law, and a son willing to give everything he had. These stories aren't about money. They're warnings. They exist to remind us that real wealth is found in open doors, open hearts, and the courage to love without conditions. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel so these lessons reach the right hearts. Thank you for staying until the very end. Note: upcoming stories may include some fictionalized elements for educational and storytelling purposes.